This book, our constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our constitution, our people, our parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
My name is Mzwandile Masina. I'm the member of the African National Congress. I sit in the National Executive Committee. I come from Katlehong in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng province. I'm a master's graduate from University of the Free State, having served in the 5th Parliament. And then I'm now returning, and I left and became the executive mayor of the city of Ekurhuleni. I am passionate about politics and as well as reading and writing. I'm an author, and I've authored a book about the future realities of the coalition, and then I gave the case about Ekurhuleni, and I guess we are now in that future.
Welcome to Parliament. I am Shihlamari Songobeni. Parliament plays a fundamental role in upholding South Africa's democracy. As the legislative arm of the state, Parliament is responsible for representing the people, passing laws, and overseeing the executive. A key mechanism for this oversight is the work of committees, which are tasked with scrutinizing government departments, processing legislation, and investigating matters of public interest. Today, we are honored to have the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition. The committee is responsible, or rather it plays a crucial role in shaping the politics and the policies that impact economic growth, industrial development, and the regulation of competition in the country. Our conversation with the chairperson today will explore key issues from the challenges faced by the National Lotteries Commission to South Africa's efforts in transitioning towards a green economy. Chairperson, welcome to Parliament TV. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much.
Let's start perhaps with the induction that you've just had as chairpersons of committees and as committees. What are your key priorities for the next 5 years emanating from the discussions that you've had in your planning as a committee?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. The Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition is a very important committee. It meets at least 4 times a week to look at matters of the economy in South Africa. So in our planning session, we really have looked into what are the key things that we need to do and do right, so that as we oversee the work of the department, we are then able to have some extra measures that we will be looking at to ensure that the department can perform. I can confirm that we are going to be ensuring that there is an industrial policy in South Africa, which is going to be overseen by the minister and the team, which basically will really have to give us 2 main things: jobs as well as economic growth, because outside of those, we will not be able to justify our being here. There are almost 8 million South Africans who are not working, so our role as members of Parliament and the department in the main is to make sure that we create work opportunities and our economy grows so that we can have a number of people working in the main.
And what is the policy going to look into? Which particular industries? For instance, we have the green economy industry. We also have the ocean economy, which is often left out, and activists in that space would argue that this is one of the low-hanging fruits in terms of economic growth and creating jobs.
Look, we've got a number of master plans that are already in place, that are approved and that we're pursuing, looking at a number of various subsectors of the economy. But the main thing is to make sure that we ramp up manufacturing in South Africa in the different subsectors, but also we make sure that we were able to beneficiate our minerals in the main. Because if we keep on sending raw materials, to the export market, we are not doing justice because we are exporting those jobs. So what we need to make sure is that the department works very hard to make sure that there's value addition in the manufacturing space, especially looking at some of the key minerals that we have as a country. So we are going to be looking at things like those to make sure that manufacturing anchored by our key minerals is a focus area in this regard.
One of the committee's key functions is to oversee the work of the Department of Trade and Industry, as you've just said, along with its entities. How does the committee ensure that the department and its entities do fulfill their mandate effectively?
Look, we play an oversight role, as I've said. So the department, in the main, they produce their annual performance plans, and we agree on the targets that must be set, and then we go and approve their budgets in Parliament. As soon as we've done that, on a monthly basis, then we keep on checking whether or not the department is performing according to the numbers that they have set in the APP. We've just concluded this week their revised APP, very, very exciting work, which the people of will benefit the people of South Africa. And we're certain that our role is then to hold them accountable in all those issues so that we can make sure that there is enough work opportunities for our people, but also our economic growth.
I believe you would have looked at the legacy reports of the 6th Parliament. What are some of the key issues that you may have identified, particularly with regards to the department and its work?
So when you look at the legacy report in the main, I think one of the major shortcomings that the department experienced was the issue of building internal capacity to be able to discharge the services. So there were a lot of people who were acting, there were a lot of boards where people were acting in the entities. So we have really begun to address that because it became our immediate priority together with the minister that over the next 3 to 6 months, let's make sure that it's not, we get suitably qualified individuals to occupy those positions so that they can make decisions in the interest of the country. I can safely say that all the boards have been advertised, and the senior management have been advertised, and the minister and the team, they are now seized with that task of ensuring that at least before we close, some of the posts would have been concluded. So when we come back in January, we are going to be assessing how far we are with regard to those so that we can ensure that all the boards are properly functioning and they can execute their responsibilities.
And how do you make sure that the people that are employed or appointed in these positions are well capacitated with necessary skills to assist the entities?
Look, we have set up very clear guidelines in terms of what we expect from officials, from boards. It is now the responsibility of the minister to ensure that according to the adverts, he finds suitably qualified individuals. And I do believe that there's quite a number of people we have in the system and outside the system who will be ready to come and provide this national service.
And does the system allow for these qualified people to function optimally, perhaps even without any form of interference?
Look, there's a lot of perception in government, but what I can tell you is that we are running a clean government. So we expect that the minister will hire the competent people, and if there are any questions, as a committee, we have got the responsibility of oversight. But so far, we have been cooperating very well to ensure that we are able to move this thing forward, because it can be about individuals. So I don't think that South Africans must feel that someone is going to close them out, even though they're suitably qualified. We are going to make sure that there is work opportunities for all. So starting with the board, with the management, and we're just going to make sure that we don't close those that are capable, who can assist us to move government forward.
Yeah, you spoke of a lot of master plans that you have. And is there any master plan around green energy and climate change?
Yes, there is a master plan around green energy and master plan, especially focusing on hydrogen. and the electric vehicles. So we've deliberated on the plan. One of the issues that we've raised quite firmly is that we need to thoroughly analyze the economic impact or benefit of the hydrogen energy vis-a-vis the electric vehicle. So all those things in the main, as we look into them, so we're going to make sure that as we replace fuel with hydrogen, we don't lose the economies of scale. For instance, the petroleum sector in South Africa contributes about 3.2% of the GDP, employing almost 300,000 people. So if we introduce hydrogen and electric vehicle subsequently, we need to make sure that there are economies of scale that are going to benefit our people, but also industry on its own must be prepared to skill and reskill those that are operating in the sector so that we don't create new industries and close the old one and close the jobs as well.
Is there interdepartmental coordination, for instance, so far as hydrogen and the green environment is concerned? Because I was listening to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, and she spoke at length about proposals that are on the table in so far as electric vehicles are concerned, and having that rolled out, perhaps using government as like a launching board. Is there any coordination? Because I think you're speaking the same language, and one could wonder if there is coordination amongst committees and even at government level.
Yes, we do have joint committees. We met with them recently where we discussed the hydrogen society, which is the plan, and then we also discussed the electric vehicle as well as the hydrogen itself. So we looked into all those, and then we are then able to say that we need to position South Africa as a player, but we need to do so, just like we do with the just energy transition, make sure that everything that we do is just. So we are cooperating a lot with the Portfolio Committee, and we've encouraged also the departments on their own technically to meet so that we can ensure that we have one plan for South Africa in terms of climate change, and we ensure that we have become a critical player without losing that which is our strength currently.
The committee is also responsible for considering departmental budget votes. What are the key priorities the committee considers when evaluating the department's budget allocation, for instance, and their spending?
Look, issues of transformation have been flagged in the committee. Issues of beneficiation and localization have been flagged. Issues of industrial policy, overall overarching industrial policy, has been flagged. So these are the things that we are looking at on how we can support the economy. In the main, we want to ensure that the DTIC plays an overall coordination role in government to ensure that we are able to discharge services, be it agriculture, energy, and all other sectors that we have, because our ability to support industries relies on coordination of the work of government, both in terms of resources, but also in terms of our own plan, so that they can talk to the development of the country. Because what is important is to make sure that there is sufficient economic growth that is going to result in jobs. So that's our preoccupation in the main.
And what would transformation look like in terms of some of the issues that you are saying have been flagged?
Look, we're looking at issues of ownership, management, and control of the factors of production. So we want to make sure that we have a number of our people who are coming from previously disadvantaged communities playing a major role in ensuring that we transform the structure, systems, and ownership pattern of the economy.
I'm wondering, and let's take the mining sector, for instance. How is that space going to be transformed? For instance, you have mining communities that are standing with your illegal miners, for instance, some are trapped underground as we speak, some are, well, maybe trapped is not the right word to use, given the circumstances. And they are arguing that there should be some sort of transformation, some form of integration into the mainstream mining industry.
Look, we do not support illegal mining in South Africa. So what we have put on the table for consideration, for instance, is that we must acknowledge that there is a lot of artisanal miners that are there. A majority of them are not working. As a result, some are tempted to do illegal things, as it were. So there is a strategy in the Department of Minerals to really mainstream those. But what we are not promoting is the illegal activities that are currently taking place and the calls that are being made to put South Africa under pressure. All what we want to say that we want to train and reskill those that are playing in the sector. But also let's look at other opportunities, either secondary mining, through mining dams and so on, so that there could be opportunities for those who have a skill in the mining sector.
And is there a platform for the committee to engage some of these stakeholders, for instance, like including these mining communities? Well, maybe not just mining, even in other industries, like private companies and labor, for instance. How does the committee engage some of these stakeholders in so far as addressing their concerns and incorporate their perspectives into the legislative and oversight work?
So we do have colleagues in the Portfolio Committee of Minerals. We are going to be engaging with them because they assist with a number of issues that have to do with mining. Specifically, we are looking at how do we use the minerals to propel our economy. But specific issues that relates to mining, we will be interacting with our colleagues so that they can actually share with us and we can share with the country in terms of what are the practical plans that are there to ensure that there is less illegal mining, but there is more activities of training and reskilling of our people that can result in those artisanal persons that are there finding employment opportunities within the mining sector.
Are there plans also for say, the so-called rural and township economy? Are there any plans, and what can people sitting at home wondering, we used to trade, we used to have small businesses, and now it's no longer possible. What can they expect from the committee insofar as inclusion in the legislative framework?
Yes, we are looking at ensuring that we cover geographically the entire South Africa with regards to opportunities. For instance, each and every area has got a particular strength. So it's important that as we scan these provinces, we must understand what are the capabilities. For instance, if you look at the Free State, that's a grain province of South Africa and that's a mining province of South Africa. If you look at Mpumalanga, that's a coal mining, province, Limpopo and Northwest, mining, platinum, and so on and so on. So we need to ensure that we develop capabilities and locate industries in those areas so that you don't have lots of people moving from rural areas into urban areas, but we can ensure that we can secure their future even in their own localities. So this is a work that we are doing to ensure that we don't just only focus on the major metropolitans, but we focus also on the rural outskirts to ensure that we can provide opportunities that are sector-based, based on the strength of each and every province in South Africa.
And are there plans to protect small businesses, especially in such spaces like your rural and township areas where you have big corporates, let's say retailers, for instance, moving at a smaller scale into those spaces? And so far as competition is concerned, are there means and ways to protect the small business space?
Well, there's a number of efforts at the regulatory level, which our sister department, the Department of Small Business, is working on to ensure that we can protect businesses. What I can share with you is that the local economies, township economies, are largely very, very huge, but they are more on consumption. So what we need to change as our contribution as a DTI is to ensure that it would not just townships don't just become a point of spending money, but it should be a point of producing goods that could be sold to the outside market so that the economy of each and every area can grow. So we do believe that the strategies that are being employed by Department of Small Business in the main should be sufficient to cover and support our small business, but we just need to work hard as a DTIC to make sure that the culture of spending is turned around so that we use the resources that we have, including small things like, for instance, nothing stops those that were owning general dealers to be the ones who are developing these malls because they are thriving in different communities and they have to be protected by citizens. So that's a work that we will really sponsor as a Department of Trade and Industry as and when we engage with the Department of Small Business.
The National Lotteries Commission appeared before the committee recently, and this was discussed. Let's take a look.
Now, on this investigation that we are presenting today, on the 6th November 2020, a Gazette 43885, Proclamation 32 of 2020 was published. The President referred the matters to the SIU, and the matters were covered in the schedule to the proclamation. The period of the investigation was 1 January 2014 to the 6th of November 2020. The scope of the investigation refers to the maladministration in the affairs of National Lotteries Commission in relation to the investment of funds of the National Lottery Distribution Trust Fund, established in terms of Section 21 of Lotteries Act, contrary to the applicable provisions of the Lotteries Act. We also investigate the allocation of money in the fund to beneficiaries who were not entitled thereto in terms of the applicable provisions of the Lotteries Act. Honorable Chair, you can see on the right-hand side, as I indicated when I started, is that this was really quite a massive, complex investigation. We've then sought to divide it into 3 phases. Each phase has got its own focus areas, got its own outcomes, and we're pleased to say phase number 1 has been finalized. And you can see there that the estimated value of the matters that were investigated in phase 1, it's about 279 million. That has been finalized. Phase number 2 has also been finalized, and the value of the matters investigated there was 246 million plus. Now, the phase 3, which is still ongoing as we present today, and is anticipated to be concluded by the 31st of December 2024. The values of the matters investigated there is valued at 905 million. We have already presented the progress report. In terms of the law, we are required to present the progress report to the President. The first progress report has already been submitted. Now, the key outcomes really are high level. The value of the contracts under investigation with potential civil litigation, it's about 2 billion as we speak. Some of those are still really in the legal process being assessed. They will ultimately end up at the special tribunal to ensure that there's recoveries. As we speak today, the actual recoveries that we have achieved, it's 9.5 million. Disciplinary referrals for action by the NLC is about 13. And then referrals to the prosecuting authority for consideration is 15. Administrative referrals to various authorities like South African Revenue Service. Referrals for blacklisting, it's 2. Referrals for professional bodies, that's about 2. And then, of course, as I said, the interim progress report has been submitted.
Now, the committee or portfolio committees have the power to investigate matters of public interest. And there has been an issue of governance and accountabilities at the National Lotteries Commission. Has the committee conducted any investigations so far into the issues there? And how does the committee ensure that the investigations or these investigations result in tangible improvements at departmental operations and policies?
Look, the National Lotteries Commission has appeared before the committee. They have presented their case. Secondly, we have also, at the point when we became members of parliament, there were already investigations that were taking place. So as a result, we have met with the law enforcement agencies, the SIU, the Hawks, as well as the NPA. They presented the detail of the extent of the investigations that have been undertaken. We were quite happy with the progress report that we've received. Of the 52 matters that were identified, 40 are with the SIU, 12 are with the Hawks, and a few are with the NPA, because they need to make sure that they've done their respective work. So we are confident that whatever wrongdoings that would have taken place, people will be brought to book. Secondly, we just need, our role now is to make sure that this noble institution should not go back to where it was before. We must make sure that those that are there now are at the helm. They mustn't think that there is a buffet free for all there. So we've got to put mechanism in place, including ensuring that the recommendations that have been made by the law enforcement agencies are tightened, and those are the things that we're going to use as our measure to really oversee the work of the NLC.
Well, Advocate Motibi, the head of the SIU, I think when he appeared before the committee, he described the situation at the NLC as highly complex. And you're talking about it as people not thinking that it should be a buffet out there. What are some of the issues that were going on there? And do you think they are preventable going forward?
Look, they should be preventable. Firstly, I think there was a collapse of system there. There was a colluding of some of the board members, the officials, with the accounting firms. There was a very grand scheme of hijacking of NGOs that was taking place. So all those things, if we have proper systems in place, are preventable. But if you don't have proper systems in place, it's going to be free for all, as we have seen. So what we have been taken into confidence by NLC now is that they have put systems in place to make sure that such things do not continue to persist in the NLC.
During the discussions in the committee, members proposed reassessing how worthy causes are determined for funding by the NLC. Is the committee satisfied that this could reshape the NLC's operations, and how?
Well, yeah, there are things that don't make sense in the main. For instance, to give you an example, I come from Katlehong. We every December we host a sports tournament, and we know how much they cost. You have a situation where someone is given 5 million to host a sports tournament, and we know there is no such. If you've got 200,000 or so, you can host a successful sport tournament. But there's other things that are funded. If you really scrutinize them quite closely, you realize that actually this is not a good cause. Whereas with what had happened, we opened up that institution. It just became a crime of greed more than anything, where people are supposed to be doing things that are of worthy causes, but in the main, those things collapsed, and then we find ourselves, where we are now, where law enforcement have come in. But the tragedy about this whole thing is that, those that have got good causes are now not being funded. They are funding delays because we are trying to make sure that we put these systems in place so that things can be done much more better. We're confident that when the system kicks in, we should be able to proceed and ensure that we can fund these worthy causes.
And what changes or improvements do you think the distribution agencies need to implement to ensure better governance and accountability?
Well, we need systems. What happened in the past, for instance, you have Mzondile Masina with the ID he applies, but he hijacks 3, 4, 5 NGOs. But if we had a system, just by an ID number and the name, you will pick up that this is one person who's playing the games with different NPOs. But it appears that those such systems were not in place. So moving forward, I think we have been assured by the commissioner and the team that they are doing everything possible to put watertight systems that are going to ensure that only those that are suitably qualified, they get to benefit from the work of the National Lotteries Commission.
And obviously, you get to know about these things through whistleblowers. And there have been concerns raised about the safety of whistleblowers with reports of threats to both of the whistleblowers and the investigators. How is the committee addressing this issue, and does it remain a significant concern?
Of course, it is. That's why one of the questions that came from the members directed to the law enforcement agencies was really, how do we ensure that there is a witness protection? We're assured that that work is underway. Obviously, it's not something that we can talk about publicly. But all those that are whistleblowing, they do have an avenue through law enforcement to ensure that they are properly protected.
You've previously referred to these actions of the implicated firms, audit firms, for instance, as crimes of greed. What consequences does the committee recommend these firms face, and can they be summoned to appear before the committee?
Look, the case is now sub judice, so it would be dangerous of us to open another channel of people to come and vent. Let the law take its course, and if we are not satisfied with the outcomes of the law enforcement, we will have another opportunity to either call those people or subpoena them to appear before the committee and be able to ask the relevant questions. But for now, we've left the matters in the hands of the police.
Okay. If you've just joined us, we are in conversation with the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition, Mr. Mzwandile Masina. When we come back, we will be speaking to the Chairperson about South Africa's transition to a green economy. We'll be right back.
We recognize the potential of the Hydrogen South Africa program, but raises critical concern regarding its alignment with the constitutional principles of equity, transparency, and environmental sustainability. While we support technological progress, it is imperative that this initiative fulfills its obligations under the Bill of Rights, ensuring that benefits are distributed equitably. The establishment of DSTI, DTIC, commercialization task team requires a robust mechanism to safeguard public funds from mismanagement. Furthermore, hydrogen production method must comply with Section 24 of the Constitution, guaranteeing a safe and healthy environment for all citizens. My question is, how will the program meet the constitutional obligations to ensure equitable access to its benefits? What specific accountability framework will be implemented to protect public resources within the task team? How will compliance with constitutional environment protection be ensured in hydrogen production?
Given that the South African economy is energy intensive, I don't think we should be shy of also seeing it as an energy opportunity to assist us to diversify our energy sources and to use that opportunity to further support the industrialization opportunity, because the two must not be mutually exclusive. But I think the issue that we at some point need to discuss is just how do we intend to industrialize the economy? Just to zone in on the issue of the industrialization. How do we intend to industrialize the economy through such a program and move it away from the MEC-related sectors, ensure that we are able to raise the levels of reindustrialization of South Africa to a higher level? But at the same time, how do we do so whilst proceeding cautiously? I think Member Thring was correct about Africa's contribution to the carbon emission ratios globally, and the fact that South Africa still possesses a lot of fossil fuels that employ a lot of people. So we obviously have to think about those aspects and how do we proceed in regard to such issues.
We're shifting gears to environmental issues. We've touched on them earlier on. The government has emphasized plans to decarbonize the economy. What progress has been made, and are there clear timelines for achieving this transition?
Look, a lot of work is being done, but we must firstly understand in context that, Africa as a continent contributes about 4% to the global emission. So whatever actions or inaction we take, it should be understood in that context that, the just energy transition has to be just. We are a country endowed with coal, for instance. So if we want to move to renewables, we must move at a pace that will not disadvantage a province like Mpumalanga, so as other sources of energy. So as a country, we're optimistic that there is a need for us to deal with issues of climate change, but we must do so in a manner that does not disrupt our economic activities, because we're dealing with quite a number of challenges. We have earmarked this as a very important area of work that must be looked at, but we must do it at a pace that is consistent with what is happening globally.
We have about 5 years before the target, the 2030 target of the Sustainable Development Goals. How are we doing in that space in terms of meeting these SDGs?
Well, we have not received the report, as you know, that our colleagues were at the COP29, where they've prepared and delivered an extensive report of South Africa. So we've not really had the sight. So when we meet with our colleagues who are responsible with this kind of work, I think we'll be in a better position to understand how far we are. What we know as the DTIC is that, we are looking at alternative sources of energy. We are looking at cleaner sources of energy, and we are also looking at alternative sources of energy so that we can make sure that we contribute in the main. And earlier on, I did touch on the electric vehicle, which is going to contribute significantly in the emission that we need to be dealing with at South Africa. So we think that whatever the figures or the numbers says from those who are directly dealing with the climate change issues from environment, we are going to ensure that we add value through some of the initiatives that we are looking at, including issues of hydrogen, electric vehicle, ensuring that even as we build new sources of energy, we do so having in mind that everything we do has to be green. So there are cleaner ways in which you can deal with even our coal, as it were.
I know you have not perused the report from colleagues who are coming back from the COP27 conference, but can you comment on our carbon footprint in relation to the shift to green economies? And do you foresee a future where we transition entirely to green hydrogen, and what long-term benefits could a green economy bring to the country and to the economy?
Look, global emission is creating a lot of problems for the globe. So we can't be spared. For instance, here in South Africa, you see there's a lot of, floods, fires, and many other, climate-related issues that are affecting us. So we do need to make sure that we move with speed to deal with those issues. I personally would not want to be stuck up to time. Other people say 5 years, 10 years. One of the things that came out as we're discussing, for instance, as a portfolio committee, is that there are just too many engine combustion cars on the road. You are not going to wake up in 5 years, you've removed all of them. So we've got to make sure that our transition is just. So we should not really rush to meet these deadlines. We've got to work towards those deadlines in a much more responsible manner.
Is there interest in, say, for instance, in the public transport space insofar as transitioning to green, to hydrogen engines, for instance? Is there any, or are you facing, could you say we are facing some resistance?
Look, everybody is interested to see, what is the economic benefit, So I would not say that generally there's resistance. People are looking at options. What does it mean economically? Does it mean more savings? Does it mean more convenient? So everybody is really looking, and I think the uptake will be at a part and scale that will ensure that we do not disrupt our own economic activities in South Africa, whilst we are fulfilling the global, commitments that we have made.
Okay. Now, as we conclude, I want us to look into public procurement law, for instance. The committee recently received a presentation on the Public Procurement Act of 2024, which was assented by the President, I think earlier this year, I think in July.
Yes.
And it was published in the Government Gazette. How does this act assist us in terms of closing gaps insofar as wasteful expenditure is concerned?
Look, between the provincial government and national government, we spend about just over 2 trillion rand buying goods and services. So it's a huge economy on its own. So if you include SOEs, if you include municipalities and other entities of government, it's probably the figure will shoot up, in a much more reasonable way. So it's important, therefore, that that space is not left unchecked by us as DTI. We've got to make sure that we create centers of excellence, we create opportunities for new entrants, and we create opportunities for those that are operating at different scale, so that we don't leave the space unattended. So this piece of legislation was very, very important for South Africa to ensure that there is a seamless transition from preferential procurement to public procurement, so that we can ensure that the overall, all the things that were almost like a blind spot are covered into. For instance, to give you an example, we spoke about how those that are malicious with regard to tenders are operating. One of the things in the new act that is being proposed is that they will have to use technology, to when they open these tenders, when they adjudicate, so that the process is transparent, and everyone can trust that who's a winning bidder is indeed a winning bidder. The issues of set aside are clarified. The issues of panels and pre-qualifications are clarified. So these are the things that have been sticking issues with regard to the previous law. As soon as this law is implemented, there is a commitment. There is a scope for the Minister of Trade and Industry to really put some regulations in place that will enable issues of transformation, issues of development, focusing also on issues of beneficiation. So there is going to be a greater role that is going to be played by the Minister of Trade and Industry in this regard. So we as the committee, we are going to be taking a closer look in those reports as they come to ensure that we can use this public procurement to bring about transformation in South Africa.
As we conclude, Chair, you touched on beneficiation earlier on. The Act provides measures for local beneficiation and innovation to prevent exportation of jobs elsewhere in the world. What is the role of the committee in ensuring that this provision serves its intended purpose? You've touched on it, but I want you to expand a bit on it.
Yeah. Look, the value addition is very important. What we are now discussing as an idea, which if properly canvassed from our other colleagues, is that there has to be a quota. But firstly, we must agree which mineral And then we must also agree about the quota so that they are those who are responsible for checks and balances who are then able to fast track and see who are the role players. Then the second issue is that there has to be an interest from private sector, because the state, we can do all these things in terms of the law, but the takers finally is the business sector, which must come and say to us, look, your quota is low or your quota is high, and what do we do? So the important thing is that we need to balance between the export-oriented growth and the growth that is backed by our own, local manufacturing here. So those are the issues that we are hoping that such pieces of legislation are going to assist us to ensure that we can hold each other accountable.
Okay, in closing, Chair, I think even when you look at the Zondo report, for instance, the criticism on Parliament and its committees, it's based on the fact that people don't see people getting arrested for crimes committed and so forth. Do you think committees have enough powers to hold people accountable individually or even report them where necessary?
Yes. There's sufficient power to, to subpoena, to open cases. I think that the scrutiny this time is quite tight. You can check from the colleagues who come from departments to Parliament. They know that firstly they have to be properly prepared, and if there are wrongdoings, you have young, bright minds in these committees who are very inquisitive, who ask very difficult questions. I'm confident that we are going to hold each other accountable, and the committee's got a huge role to play in ensuring that the executive is held to account on behalf of the people of South Africa.
Chairperson, let me thank you. We'll be looking forward to having you again. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you.
That's Mr. Mzwandile Masina, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition, providing valuable insights into the issues of accountability and governance at the National Lotteries Commission, as well as his insights in South Africa's readiness to transition to a green economy. Thank you for watching Parliament TV. I am Shihlamari Songobeni. Goodbye.